411 Live.
Where you can learn about issues that impact us every day. State of world, 411 Live.
Real people, real talk.
Made to help people in our community in every way. For your girl, 411 Live.
Hello, I'm Beverly Taylor, and this is the 411 Live. Real people, real talk. We've just wrapped up Season 8, and you know what that means. It's time to give you the rundown of what we've been chatting about all season long. Over the next 3 episodes, we're serving up snippets of the 20 episodes that made this season special. Stay tuned for a mix of topics that hit close to home. Meet some fascinating folks you'll be excited to get to know, and catch some info that might just make a positive impact in your life. Okay, let's begin with episode 1 of season 8, The Spread of Violence, Understanding Violence as a Communicable Disease. In this episode, David Muhammad, Deputy Director of the Milwaukee County Department of Health and Human Services, dives into the impact of violence on youth and breaks down how it can spread from person to person and affect entire communities like a communicable disease. However, there's an upside to this. We're not just dwelling on the negatives. We're also digging into how we can team up and make our neighborhoods safer and more peaceful for everyone.
When we talk about it from the lens of Milwaukee and looking at neighborhoods and communities, when we see disinvestment in a neighborhood, when we see institutions in those neighborhoods that are going away, taken away, or are under-resourced, you start to see community life break up. When you see families under great economic and social pressure, you see that acted out in ways that express anger and frustration, or even in many respects, self-treatment. We can look at drugs as a form of self-prescribing, whether that's alcohol or other types of hard drugs. Mm-hmm. And people are coping in various ways that can be self-destructive. And so when people express that frustration in unregulated emotional ways, it can erupt in violence. So all violence is really a retaliatory response to feeling unheard, disconnected, unloved, disrespected, or vulnerable. And when you put it in that context, whatever means or methods people have, whether it's a gun, whether it's a hand, whether it's abusive language, all of that can take on the form of violence. But it all comes from a level of violence, which is disinvesting in neighborhoods and communities and destroying families.
Yeah. When we talk about the young people, and, in the news, young people are associated with the stolen cars.
Sure.
And we had, a mother on the 411 Live not too long ago. Her daughter was, in a stolen car with the kids, and she was hurt.
Absolutely.
I mean, in intensive care, and couldn't talk. But she was able to kind of motion. And her mom asked her, you going to keep on stealing these cars? And she said, yes. And then her mother reminded her of the consequences and, of those actions. And then she said no. A lot of people are out there who just say, but these young people who are doing these things, just lock them up, lock them all up. Mm-hmm. Why is that a bad idea?
Well, I think anytime somebody is a threat to themselves and to the general public, there should be a place for them to be rehabilitated. The fact remains that even though we have places like that, rehabilitation hasn't worked. And if it did, Milwaukee would be one of the safest places, right, because we incarcerate have some of the largest incarceration numbers of Black males particularly. Given the example that you cited, what you're looking at is high-risk behavior. And there's a level of adrenaline and risk associated with that than you and I probably had a different way or a different outlet to express or have. And then this generation of young people engaging in that kind of behavior, it doesn't make sense to us. But I'd say, remember, maybe 15 years ago, the smash and grab in the malls didn't make sense to us either, or some of those other things that young people were doing. And, stealing a car only to crash it and jump out of it or drive it in a haphazard way with your friends recording it doesn't seem like something that would make sense. But when you're looking at young people who are disengaged, who are under-supervised, and there's a lack of resources, they're making probably the most self-destructive choice they could make. But it didn't happen in a vacuum. And I would kind of like to share with the audience where I see that this behavior has evolved over time,
Please
if it's
do.
possible. Well, a couple of things. There's policy points that you can identify where trends start. And so we can say, well, there's a viral trend about Kia or Hyundai, all right? But I remember when, maybe around 2015, the police department got in some trouble, 2015, 2016, 2017, for traffic stops. And in the street of Center Street, there were about 20,000 stops in Milwaukee. About 7,500 of them just happened on Center Street. So there was a lot of focused policing in a certain area under the guise of traffic stops, but effectively it was racial profiling.
Okay.
So there was not a lot of traffic safety type of policing or quality of life policing, but it was targeting certain drivers, certain profiles, or even individuals and having a traffic stop. When that lawsuit came, the police department, there was a chilling effect. And so there was a stepping back under that police chief at that time. I believe it was Flynn and then it was Morales. And they went into a much more targeted type of policing that says, okay, we're going after mobile drug houses.
Right.
The word got out that they weren't going to chase. Chief Flynn was against the chase policy because he said it costed the lives of citizens and officers. When the shift from Flynn to Morales happened, Chief Morales reinstituted, as well as the FPC, and many people in the community said, chase them.
Right.
Go after them. And so you started seeing more and more crashes and incidents. There were incidents happening when there was a no chase policy, but you know how it is.
Episode 2, Representation Matters, Why Teachers of Color Are Essential for an Inclusive Education System. Here's an eye-opening statistic for you. In Milwaukee, more than 67% of the teachers are white, while more than 90% of the students are of color. This is a bit of a mismatch, right? Research is telling us that students thrive both academically and behaviorally when they see more teachers who share their background. The catch? We've got a shortage of teachers of color. But don't worry, I've got some awesome guests on board to chat about solutions. Contributing to a great conversation, Anthony McHenry, CEO of Milwaukee Academy of Science, Rodney Link Jr., CEO of Milwaukee Excellence, and Jennifer Lopez, CEO at Carmen Schools of Science and Technology.
I had the honor and privilege of having a Black principal when I was in my elementary school. I went to Frederick Douglass Elementary School on 38th. And Concordia, really sad that it's no longer open. And I had a dream that I was going to open that school back up. Like when I came back, it was a whole thing. But Mr. Thompson, Principal Thompson, made it so I was able to see myself as someone that can do this role. Mm-hmm. And I believe, as Jennifer states, when we sit in these positions and get results for students and fight tirelessly for them, they're going to say, oh, I can do that as well. And I think that is something that is the profound impact. I think we need great teachers of every race inside all schools. Mm-hmm. The profound impact that a teacher of color does for our students, they can see themselves doing that now. And I think that's the part that is missing sometimes, and missing the sense of like, we are the bearers of knowledge. We can teach our own communities. I think the last thing I'll leave you with on this one is, when we used to, they said before integration, right, we used to control the church, the stores, and the books, right? Education. So before 1954, Brown v. Board, we lost some of this cultural capital of seeing ourselves as the bearer of knowledge, as the person that's saying, hey, you are going to give me this knowledge, and I can give knowledge to one another as well. And that's where I think we have to get back, and we're fighting very hard to do that. MAC and MAS, they just put on, I'll pub them, they put on a great, diversity conversation around bringing people back into teaching, because I believe, and I think you all are doing a great job here too, because people don't know what's at stake right now for the city of Milwaukee if we don't get more individuals that look like us teaching our students.
Right, right. And then, you look at, and, we've all seen the stats and all this, the education gap between black and white students, brown students, white students, all of those comparisons, and the gap is wide. And this is one of those ways that we could start narrowing that gap, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we know we need them. We know we need teachers of color. Where do we get teachers of color? Because, a lot of graduates are going into other fields. They're not going into education. And to me, with education, it's more of a calling than a profession almost. But how do you get that drive?
Yeah, I want to challenge with the question just a little bit.
Okay.
It's not a small part of the equation of how to fix it.
It's a big one.
Having high quality teachers, as Rodney said, of any race, is the answer.
Right.
Right. I said this the first day that I spoke to the staff at Milwaukee Academy of Science when I was hired. We can become a great school if I'm an average CEO, but we got great teachers and great student support staff and paraprofessionals. The opposite is not true, right? It's the key. If we get high quality teachers, kids win, right? What research is telling us is that if those teachers look like the students, the rate in which they're going to win accelerates tremendously, right? Just the fact that having one elementary kid, one teacher by the time you're in third grade that's of your race increases your likelihood of graduation 13%. Like, that's mind-boggling. Just one, right? What if they have 10?
Yeah.
Right? What if all of them are African-American teachers? So it's a big part of the challenge. I think one of the things that we are doing wrong, but one of the things that we have in common is we're no longer just looking at traditional pipelines for teaching. What we need to do is kind of rethink how we talk about the education profession. Like, it drives me crazy when people say, oh, teachers aren't paid enough. Well, to be honest with you, that is 100% factual, right? But there are several other occupations, and quite frankly, most of the other occupations that Black people are graduating college from that are also underpaid, right? And simply, we can't pay our teachers worth, right? I'd give all of them $1 million because that's the work they're doing. But the point is that this is a career that you can have a really, really quality life if you become a teacher and if you choose to do something beyond that in education as well. So I think we just need to change the messaging so that kids aren't constantly hearing that teaching is such a difficult job and it's a low-paying job. People can create a great life for themselves in the education space. But the other part of it is we just can't depend on colleges to push out all of the teachers. And so I say to anybody who has a degree or is pursuing a degree, whether it's in education or not, you should really consider this, right? You're not going to find a job that's going to be as fulfilling as helping young people chase their dreams and their goals, right? And so
Episode 3, Living the Sober Life Mentally, Physically, and Spiritually. We dive deep into a program that's making a real difference for women who have been through some tough times. And I'm talking about real trauma. Joining me are Nancy Yarbrough, who is the executive director of Fresh Start Learning, Angela Clements, and Darlene Dyson. These ladies are bringing the real talk, laying it all out with openness and transparency. The podcast takes us on their journey and shows how far they've come.
The first time I was inviting parents, and by me being an advocate, when I heard the title Living Sober, I thought it was like recovering like you. So that is why I wanted to participate and have some of the families come so they could be comfortable just to support them. But in the midst of me going to that group thinking I was supporting parents, I became a person that was interested in, wow, this is me. It's not so much about addiction, what I thought the title was. It was more about the mindset and change your way of thinking. And then in that midst, I realized I probably was one smoke away from being where they're at if they weren't telling the truth of how they got there. I was really in those situations, not knowing that's where it would have led to why you thinking that it couldn't be you. So I was excited when she had it again, like, sign me up. I didn't even really think about parents at the time. I was thinking about myself. So I did still pass the information on, but it was personal this time and the urgency. So.
Okay. Well, if you will allow me, let me go a little deeper with you.
Okay.
What were some of the things that came out that you were like, okay, I'm struggling with this. I need to explore more of this. What was going on in your life?
This is the honest truth. I don't even think I shared it in group yet. I was going to do it later on. I realized how much I hated myself.
Really?
In the midst of me always saying, I'm strong, I'm this, and the things I was doing in life, I put myself up there like all of these qualities and all these men's and what they had. And then in that midst of breaking down in those cycles, I realized I hated myself versus thinking I loved myself by the choices I was making. So that was like an eye-opener to me, like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me all these years I'm up here living like this and that, and in actuality, I don't even care about myself. So then I had to learn that if I'm out here helping others, this is something I definitely need to seek, because hurt people hurt others.
Right.
But then I want to be the answer to somebody else's problem. So therefore I had to figure out, now I'm a problem. So yeah.
Okay. So what are some of those choices you were making?
Like knowing the men's wasn't good enough for me, and yet and still making excuses why I should still be there. As in, okay, he might cheat, but he got a lot of money. He may call me out my name, but he pay my bills, take care of my kids. I kept settling, and I kept tolerating. So then once I knew my worth, by taking these classes, I started figuring out who I really was and who I could be. All that stuff was falling off like dead skin.
I like that. What was that aha moment?
When I heard so many women at the table talk about what led them to a drug addiction, and then I said to myself, that broken heart will get you to that point. And I'm just one.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we will continue our review of Season 8 of the 411 Live.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Hi. I'm your retirement fear. But don't be scared. You're still in pre-retirement.
Does that mean I have more time to plan?
Precisely. Here, this is pretirement.org.
Retirement savings options? Potential tax breaks?
Ooh,
This isn't scary. I'm doing it.
you got this.
Visit thisispretirement.org for free resources to help you customize your action plan.
Welcome back to our look at Season 8 of the 411 Live. Let's go to Episode 4, Black Women Working to Provide Affordable Housing in Milwaukee. This episode should light a fire under you to get you involved and make a positive impact in your community. The city of Milwaukee set aside $15 million from the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, or ARP, for a housing program to renovate vacant houses and turn them into affordable housing. Well, the city threw out a call for developers. And my guests, Adrienne Hunter, Anita Clinton, and Jennifer Webster, a CEO, a marketing strategist, and a new real estate agent, along with 3 others, didn't just sit back. Nope, they rolled up their sleeves and turned their vision into action, becoming developers. You know, you will be an inspiration to others. You will be role models. How do you look at that, or how does that hat fit?
So I didn't consider it from that perspective until once we posted it, people started saying it, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's really interesting because I was more concerned, if concerned is the word, with the fact that it was 5 women, right, and a man, but 5 women, and 5 African American women, so let's be clear, and the stereotype that we can't work together, that we can't get along. And so for me, it was more focused. I was more focused on, okay, let's make sure that we do what we can do to keep this thing together, to deliver at the very end. And then I think that it's just an added benefit that we may become mentors to other people that are looking like, man, if they can do this, we can probably do this too. And so I think that's really cool.
And you're business people, so I'm sure that you have, your little agreement among you, so everything's on paper. So down the line, you won't go, well, you told me this, and that kind of thing. Everything's in place. Right?
It just makes sense.
Yeah.
And once you've done business before and hit a few hurdles and had to jump over a few hurdles, or ran and fell into a few potholes, you know that any good business venture requires a good infrastructure and legal structure. Yeah. And if you're offended by that, you're not ready. And so once you've been accomplished in business, you know that let's put it on paper. And then you understand too that when you're moving in business, it's a live document. That means that there's going to be a time where we have to come back to the table and modify the agreement. But when you have the right people at the table, and if you're careful about being a great student, you're okay with that.
Yeah.
If offense kick in, you're not ready.
Yeah.
And so,
Episode 5, Grieving Fathers, Overcoming the Stigma of Internalizing Pain. You've probably heard the heartbreaking saying that no parent should have to bury their child. Unfortunately, when it does happen, the grief is unimaginable. My guest, Kevin Tarkington, the founder of Fearless Fathers, shines a light on something important. He points out that fathers often get overlooked when it comes to dealing with the loss of a child. This episode is all about recognizing the pain fathers go through and giving them the space and support they need to grieve.
A lot of times with fathers, we all know, growing up as men, you're always told to be strong, suck it up. You get through this. And that is good. It keeps positive, but it's a negative connotation about men holding their feelings and being able to express themselves. So they internalize their feelings. So we move forward on to adulthood, and then expressing their feelings about certain things is not always as easy because you expect them to be strong, brave, and get through it. And then you go through grief and you lose a child.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
How do you express yourself as a male?
Right. And I think, we say women seem to get more attention. It may be because the men are not being vulnerable to show that they need some healing. They need
Absolutely.
that.
And the reason they're not being as vulnerable is because of what they've been told and how they've been expressing the impression that they give as being men, which is not wrong. However, as I always say, men have feelings too. We just have to get those out and talk. Women, as you can see, they're easy to express themselves. They're expressive people.
We are.
So you expect that. But with men, fathers, we have to remain strong. We have to give that persona as being strong.
And the grief is just as deep.
And the grief is just as deep. Mm-hmm. That's when I came up with Fearless Fathers, going through my own grief and being able to notice that we need to get something out there for men who feel and felt the same thing that I felt when I lost my child.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
You lost your daughter.
I lost my daughter.
About how long ago?
2016.
2016. Okay.
Her name is Ebony. And
tell me about Ebony.
Okay. Ebony is a beautiful soul.
Yeah.
Wonderful person. Loved people and loved being around people. And so much more to talk about. I mean, we all who lost a child can talk all day about our child and our children.
Right.
But my experience with that is I lost her due to complications through non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I lost her in my home. That I happened to come into a room on a Sunday after church and find her unconscious. So in that instance, I immediately felt myself being a different person. And I knew at that time that I wasn't going to be able to get through this without God, one, and then two, without some other assistance. So what I did was I sought out some assistance through a therapist early on, and which was good time being, but I felt I needed more. And then what I did was reach out to an organization called the Compassionate Friends, which is an organization that works with parents that lost a child. parents, grandparents, I should say, as well. And I went through that, and I attended a couple of sessions. And when I went to my first session, I was one of 2 guys that was there. So in the sessions, you know, each person is going around talking about their loss of their child. And it's
Episode 6, Northwest Side CDC, Creating Economic Business Growth Opportunities. If you're on the lookout for some solid guidance and resources to kickstart and grow your own business, you'll like this podcast. I'm chatting it up with Willie Smith, Executive Director of Northwest Side Community Development Corporation, and we're revealing how his organization offers businesses the support they need through coaching and funding. But here's the kicker. Willie's got some valuable advice for you, too. He's all about emphasizing the need to rethink your strategies as your business takes off.
You hear all of these stories about Milwaukee and just a number of the different areas where we're lacking in comparison to comparable cities throughout the country. And, you know, oftentimes, and even on the social service side, I won't go down this road too far, but I feel like, you know, we've succeeded admirably at what we've tried to do with our people, with, you know, a lot of the social services and things that we've provided. And I say that because I feel like what we've done is assisted people with surviving. Mm-hmm. There has been no effort, in my opinion. There might be a few out there, so I won't say at all, but oftentimes, the majority of programs and such are designed for people to survive, not for them to thrive. Mm. And if you think about it, as a people within this city, that's about where we are. It's survival. So we've done that. But the catch with that is you have to keep doing it.
Right.
You have to keep, you know, kind of feeding the monster, if you will, and, you know, kind of keep the machine going so that you can keep these people surviving where, you know, what if we were looking at things in a little bit differently? What if we not only tried to assist a person with obtaining a job or with getting a business loan for their business, but we also look beyond that. I mean, if you're, you know, if your business is making, you know, $500,000 a year, what about shooting for $5 million per year? And what does that look like? And, you know, when folks begin to think along those lines, it changes what they see as potential for themselves and their business. Right. So we try to, you know, work with businesses in that fashion and, you know, bring partner organizations in. It's not just Northwest Side CDC. So the one thing that we're not is an organization who believes in silos. We collaborate with a ton of different lending institutions, much like our own, and banks as well. So, you know, the goal is to just do more. You know, how much more effective are we if we're collaborating and, you know, using partners to make things happen?
Well, you know, for a lot of people, they just need somebody for that encouragement.
Exactly.
You know, they see this much, they need somebody to kind of open their eyes a little bit and see the bigger picture.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, and the obstacles that people believe are there, I don't necessarily buy that either. The money, people think the money is the problem.
Right. And I'm going to stop you there because you said, I wrote this down. You said change the mentality.
Yep.
Move from that survival, and you said, and that downtrodden mentality.
Yeah.
Right?
Unfortunately, that is rather prevalent in Milwaukee and in a lot of communities where people just don't feel like they can move beyond where they are, you know, so they operate with that mentality.
As you can see, the 411 Live is all about diving into a variety of interesting topics. And trust me, we've only scratched the surface in these episodes. I encourage you to listen to the full episode, so watch it on YouTube. Oh, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll highlight the remaining Season 8 episodes next time. The 411 Live is a nonprofit organization, so if you'd like to support us, go to our website, the411live.org. Thanks for listening. I'm Beverly Taylor, and this is the 411 Live. Real people, real talk. God bless. If you would like to check out past episodes, there are many ways. Go to your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Like and watch us on Facebook. Watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have suggestions for future episodes, go to our website, the411live.org.
The 411 Live.
Where you can learn about issues that impact us every day. State of world, 411 Live.
Real people, real talk.
Made to help people in our community in every way. Boy or girl, 411 Live.
Hello, this is Beverly Taylor, and this is the 411 Live. Real people, real talk. We have hit another milestone. Praise the Lord. We've completed season 8. And you know, we always like to highlight nuggets from the completed season. We're serving up snippets from all 20 episodes. And last time, we took a stroll down memory lane with episodes 1 through 6. Now in this episode and the next, we're continuing our review. Get ready for a mix of topics tackling important issues in our community, introducing you to some incredible people, and dropping knowledge that might just impact your life. Stay tuned. It's going to be a good one. Let's start with episode 7, Lead Poisoning in Milwaukee, a silent danger and a growing problem. Our children are our future, and I'm sure you all agree. They are precious, and it's our job to keep them safe, but there's a silent danger lurking in parts of Milwaukee, impacting their health. Michael Mannon, the director of Home Environmental Health at the City of Milwaukee Health Department, enlightens us about the extent of the problem. He points out that lead paint, used from the 1920s to 1978, is still present in over 250,000 units, maybe even more, causing hazards when it starts to chip or create dust. And it's not just the paint. Lead can be found in the water and the soil, too. But here's the kicker. State laws are putting a limit on what can be done to tackle the issue.
You know, to get your idea around how much does it take, right? All that you need is a packet of sugar that most people are familiar with and spread that throughout your entire house. One packet of sugar. That's as little as it takes to get a child poisoned. Oh, wow. And then you think a look at all of the areas that could deteriorate just on regular use. Not necessarily busting a hole into a wall. You've got windows going up and down. Every time you open and close those windows, those friction surfaces deteriorate and they create dust.
Yeah.
Dust blows in. Right at the height of a sill that kids would want to take a look at, put their hands on, maybe falls onto the floor. People are walking, especially young children that are crawling.
Oh, wow. That gave me a visual. Child crawling. Yeah.
Yeah, or just doors opening and closing. I mean, we only open our windows maybe on hot, warm days, right? But a door opening and closing every time you walk past it, every time you step on that threshold, all of that could have lead paint on it, deteriorates, and you just drag it right into the home. So there are lots of ways for that dust or deterioration to get into the built environment.
Right. What's prevalent prevalent in Milwaukee? It's in the paint, in the water, and in the soil, right?
Yeah, and it's important to note where it comes from, right? So we know it's on the coating, the walls, doors, windows, porches, things like that. How does it get into the soil? Well, that's because the exterior of the home is painted in lead, and weathering, just normal weathering, could deteriorate it, and then you get chips into the soil all along where your drip line is, around where your gutters go straight vertically down. So, or from your gutter itself, pushing out some of that lead paint, because your gutters might have been painted with it. So that's how it gets into the soil. So it's predominantly in the soil from paint. We did have a lot of gasoline that was leaded. And so a lot of vehicles that were driving in the 30s, 40s, 50s, before they took lead out of gasoline, all that exhaust was leaded, and it would settle into the soil as well. So we don't have to worry about that as much, but I guess my point is there's lead in the environment, And our task is to diminish the amount of lead so that the impacts don't affect people within their homes or their community.
Okay. That's a great overview. Thank you. So now with Milwaukee, we have a concentrated area, right, for this lead. Like you said, it's spread out because a lot of homes were built before 1978. But there's a concentrated housing stock, I guess you would say.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question because it really opens the door to discuss all of the issues that kind of intercede in that space. One of them is the fact that you got old housing that has lead paint on it. But we know old housing with lead paint isn't enough to cause lead poisoning. We can go into some areas of Milwaukee like Bayview where they have the same age of construction but less poisonings. That's because those properties are maintained better. Now we go to certain parts of our city where we know the properties aren't maintained. And why aren't the properties maintained?
Episodes 8 and 9 were a review of Season 7, so let's move on to Episode 10, where we pick up on the lead issue. The episode is called Learning Challenges and Barriers Faced by Children with Lead Poisoning. Let me hit you with a stat that really caught my attention. In 2021, the percentage of Milwaukee children with elevated blood lead levels was nearly double the state average. That's not a small matter, considering that lead poisoning can cause behavioral issues and learning disabilities. Joining me in this eye-opening discussion was Holly Manis, a public health nurse with the Milwaukee Health Department, Shaquita McElroy, and Deanna Branch, two incredible parent advocates with the Coalition of Lead Emergency, or COLE. They're not just talking the talk. They're sharing their personal experiences as moms dealing with the impact of lead poisoning of their children. Together, we're digging into the importance of testing, case management, and community collaboration. They offer practical prevention tips as well.
It wasn't until a routine lead check at the WIC office where I was alerted that, he had a high lead level. And the WIC office just told me to take him in to his pediatrician. I really didn't know it would be as severe to the point where when he did get tested, he was admitted into the hospital. 2 days after the test results came back, he was being admitted into the hospital. I had so many questions that I felt like weren't really being answered. It wasn't really until just becoming a member of COLE that I learned the severity of really all of my child had to face. But there definitely were signs that were being passed off as just like, oh, he's just going through a terrible two-phase. It's what they call it, but it was definitely signs that I felt as a parent I really knew something was off. So it was just hard to. All of my worries were. It was just came to a full head when he was diagnosed with lead poisoning, and after he was diagnosed with that, a lot of other things came about with his behavior as far as ADHD and ODD and. It just really is a lifelong process for any child who is lead poisoned. No matter the severity, there's no safe level of lead in the blood for a child.
Yeah. And so when you were at the pediatrician, I think, were you telling me that you told the doctor something seems a little off?
This is before the WIC office appointment. And I was just, before I moved into the house that he was lead poisoning in, but he was having, I don't think it was the lead level in the first house or my eldest son we were living in, it wasn't as bad. But the pediatrician office in the neighborhood I took him to, she didn't really address my concerns when I was having concerns about his behavior. She just passed it off as terrible two-phase, that every child is different, because I didn't experience those symptoms with my oldest son. It wasn't until I moved into a new house with my sons and a new pediatrician. And after the WIC office visit, that's when she really was more hands-on and addressed my concerns, got him tested right away, and walked me through the process of him being admitted into the hospital for lead poisoning. And I just feel like she really was a big help. She's a part of COLE now. She's an awesome pediatrician that he still visits till this day. And she's going to be my new daughter's pediatrician as well. She's just awesome. It's just really great to. Through all of this craziness, I created a lifelong friend with my pediatrician. It's been great knowing her.
Yeah, and I should mention that you are an expected mother, so congratulations to you for that. Tell me the effects that you were mentioning.
It really is different for every child. My oldest son, he wasn't as impacted. He wasn't hospitalized for his lead poisoning, but he does have problems in school that affects his learning process. It's hard for him to concentrate and focus. He has dyslexia, so he has barriers that it makes it hard for him to, get up and he writes things.
Episode 11, Empowering Futures, Northwestern Mutual's HBCU Connection Scholarship. Here, we shine a spotlight on the scholarship program designed to support students pursuing education at accredited historically black colleges or universities, HBCUs, and address social and racial disparities faced by young people in Milwaukee. Steve Ratke, president of Northwestern Mutual Foundation, and D'Essence Johnson, a scholarship recipient now attending Miles College, are my guests. Together, we delve into the significance of unlocking the full potential of talented individuals and the positive ripple effect it can have on the community.
We have tried to identify kind of what we call pipelines, and that's kind of an odd phrase, but we've looked at schools, high schools, again, primarily those that are serving, students of color or people who might be coming from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, where they can get a real quality high school education. Then looking at those high schools, and we work very closely with some of our schools. We work closely with our Howard Fuller Academy, Milwaukee Academy of Science. I know you've had some of the leaders of those schools on your program before. Then look at the schools, the grade schools that they go to, and make sure that those grade schools are being supported. And then even back to pre-elementary school education to make sure before they're even in school, they are exposed to opportunities to read and get those fundamentals before they even enter a formal classroom. And then look beyond high school into college, and what can we do to provide wraparound services, again, for people who are, might be first generation students. Another program we're heavily involved with is All in Milwaukee, which helps support, we're supporting 100 students who are going through the All in Milwaukee program, who are going to college locally. Again, so we can help these students throughout their entire learning career. And again, we want everyone to have a great opportunity to be leaders in Milwaukee and come work at Northwestern Mutual someday.
Yes, absolutely. And I think about, the work that you're doing, and it seems it's even more important after the pandemic, because so many kids got behind because of the pandemic, and there's a lot of catching up that needs to be done and a lot of focus on education. And the more people that are involved in this, the better, to help these kids to get where they need to go. And just knowing that there is that support, that they are supported and people are pulling for them, I think that really makes a difference. D'Essence, I want to ask you about, and I talked to you earlier, you are the first in your family to go to college, right? And tell me what that means for you.
Yes, I feel like I am breaking a generational curse. I'm making a way for the rest of my family, the ones that are younger than me, to go to college as well. Although my older brother and my mom didn't fully make it through college or get to the college point, they both were excited for me to push me to go out of state and to continue my journey here at Mouse College.
Yeah. And I can imagine that you have a younger brother. You're going to college, him seeing what you're doing and what you will accomplish. I would imagine that you think possibly that would have an influence on him.
Yes. My little brother, he already wants to go to high school in Texas. I don't know why, but he just wants to travel. He definitely likes to be out and to see what the world is.
Yeah. How has that just getting away? Because, I talk to a lot of kids and a lot of people haven't ventured out past Milwaukee. So how has that whole idea of moving hundreds of miles from home, how has that impacted you?
I get sad at times, but at the same time, technology has taken a lot into society and FaceTime, group calls, all of that. So we're all on FaceTime 24/7, getting ready for school, work, all of it. So I see them every day.
That's good. I wonder who was more anxious about the move, you or your family?
Me.
You think you were?
Yeah. My family they wanted me to go, but they weren't like quite ready for me to go in.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we will continue our review of season 8.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Hi. I'm your retirement fear. But don't be scared. You're still in pre-retirement.
Does that mean I have more time to plan?
Precisely. Here, this is pretirement.org.
Retirement savings options? Potential tax breaks?
Ooh,
This isn't scary. I'm doing it.
you got this.
Visit thisispretirement.org for free resources to help you customize your action plan.
Welcome back. We continue our review of season 8 of the 411 Live. Episode 12, Family Dynamics, Love, Challenges, and Explosive Relationships. This is a raw and honest conversation with Ira Harris, author of It Takes a Village to Raise a Child. Harris unfolds her personal journey in her book and shares with us the profound impact of a loving grandmother and the challenges posed by a troubled father. Harris drops some wisdom, emphasizing the importance of teaching children about God. She believes that understanding and living by God's ways offer a better chance than navigating the corrupted ways of the world.
He was older, much older than my mom. I think my mom was 16 or 17.
Oh, she's very young.
Yeah, and he was in his late 20s. And from what my grandmother said, they used to go fishing all the time. My grandmother, her husband, and my mom and the kids. So they used to go fishing all the time. And they met in church, and he wanted to take my mom fishing. And my mom ended up getting pregnant behind going fishing.
Okay.
So
doing a different kind of fishing.
Mm-hmm. But I do know that they both was in church. So I know that's where all this sentimental and spiritualness inside of me comes from.
Okay.
Because it's in her background.
So she got pregnant. That's with your sister.
The oldest girl, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And my grandmother said they had moved to Kenosha. I don't know if I was born. I can't remember. They had moved to Kenosha after she had my oldest sister. And the story is my dad was abusing my mom. But somehow the neighbor knew my grandmother and called my grandmother and told her what was going on with my mom, that my dad had locked her in the house, wouldn't let her do nothing. He can hear her screaming and stuff like that. So my grandmother said she sent my mom's youngest sister over to Kenosha to rescue my mom.
Okay.
And brought her back.
Okay.
So
the baby and Liberty.
I think
your sister's Liberty.
Her yeah, that's her nickname.
Okay.
So I believe I was born then.
Okay.
And then to continue that, she ended up, my mother, I remember this so clearly. My mom went to court for child support, or either she got subpoenaed and had to go to court for whatever. So it was me and my oldest sister. And I know for a fact I wasn't no more than about this tall. So I had to be about maybe 7 or 8 years old. And the courtroom was dark. The judge was an elderly white man, and we sat there for a while. Then he finally called my mom's name. I don't remember all the words, but what stuck in my mind was my dad crying to the judge saying,
Episode 13, From Stroke to Redress, Reggie Jackson's journey of healing and advocacy. In the healing process, sometimes you have to go back to your past and address it. That's precisely what we do in this episode as we discuss the Redress Movement, a national organization committed to empowering communities to address racial segregation. We also focus on the healing process of our guest, Reggie Jackson, a historian and co-owner of Nurturing Diversity Partners, who is also in the healing process from a stroke. He shares his journey of recovery and how he became involved in the redress movement. Learn about the historical forces that intentionally created segregation, the impact it still has on our communities today, and the steps being taken to redress the damage caused by these policies and practices.
It came as quite a surprise. Fortunately, my wife was with me when it happened, and she forced me to go to the emergency room. I just told her, I said, I just feel kind of tired. I'm just going to go home and, get some rest. And she's like, we're going to get you behind to the hospital. So, I listened.
Yeah.
And, went to the hospital, and they told me right away, yeah, you had a stroke. And they kept me there for 3 days.
Wow.
Doing some, some testing and, no real treatment right away, but just looking at, the condition of my brain and, how it impacted my body. Fortunately, it wasn't a really major stroke. It was a pretty minor stroke. I mean, no stroke is really, really minor.
Yeah.
But the damage that it caused wasn't anything significant. There was no paralysis. It just impacted the strength on the left side of my body and made my voice, not the voice that I'm accustomed to hearing. So that's the biggest struggle I've had is just, getting my voice strong again. But my body feels great. I've lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, you
Made
have.
some lifestyle changes. Eating a lot better, Beverly. My wife and I are both so much healthier now. And my body feels the best it's felt in years.
Yeah. Now health is taking a priority, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I said last November, and just talking to you now is because we were waiting for that voice to get stronger. Right. So progressively, it has gotten stronger.
It has. It's still, a ways to go. Yeah. But, it's stuff that I work on every day to strengthen it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It'll take a little while before it gets back to where I want it to be. But, it's significantly stronger now than it was even a few weeks ago.
So, at the intro, I was talking about delving into the past, looking at the past so you can move towards a brighter future. And the reason why I brought that up is because of the redress movement that you're involved in. And it is, it's kind of a way of, I look at it as healing, really. Tell me a little bit about redress movement and how you're involved in it.
So I joined the redress movement officially last year. I was hired as a member of the research team. It's a national organization that launched in 3 cities initially: Charlotte, North Carolina, Denver, Colorado, and Milwaukee. And the redress movement is a Black-led organization committed to leading a multiracial movement that empowers communities to take direct action to redress racial segregation. And, we've all heard Milwaukee's the most segregated place in the country. So, we're the poster child for segregation in many respects. And so the redress movement works in deep partnership with local communities to repair the harm caused by intentional policies to segregate communities. And we do our work by educating, and not only educating, but also mobilizing communities and shift the narrative about how we became segregated and the impact of that. And then winning redress victories, so holding people accountable for creating the segregation that we have and the negative impacts of that is really an important part of what redress is trying to do. And our starting point is housing, but we work in solidarity with others who are working on, social justice issues and redressing harms of the past. It's really important. As you said, the past really is something that we have to address. We can't just continue to ignore the ugly parts of American history because they're still impacting us on a daily basis, even if we don't see it.
Episode 14, Reclaim, Renovate, Reinvest, Changing Neighborhoods One Block at a Time. The best way to address community issues is through bottom-up solutions. This means tapping into the insights of individuals who have personally experienced poverty and possess a profound understanding of the challenges faced by the community. I have this candid conversation with Kurt Owens, the pastor of You Flourish Church of Milwaukee and the founder of Bridge Builders, a neighborhood development organization. Kurt shares his personal journey from being a drug dealer to becoming a pastor, his choice to stay in his neighborhood and create a positive impact, and the mission driving Bridge Builders. Their aim? To inspire inner-city innovation and transform neighborhoods one block at a time. There are some folks from your background who might be surprised at what you're doing now, right?
Yeah.
And you alluded to it earlier, but your life took a different path. I mean, you're a pastor now. I think you're a PK too, a pastor's kid. But somehow things got off track, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
Were you a drug dealer?
I most certainly was. I think I was attracted to it very young, or at least I was attracted to the lifestyle. I seen people in my community. Most of the people in my community were blue collar. I'd never seen a black lawyer. I'd never seen a black doctor. I'd never seen black, white collar, anything. Neighborhood I grew up in, it was just all blue collar. I wasn't attracted to blue collar. My dad was blue collar. I just wasn't. And I believed that I couldn't be anything that I wanted to be in life. And so I just figured that I'm going to have to make my own way. And it's crazy because the same year that I started college was the same year I became a drug dealer.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I was going to school during the days, living the life of a drug dealer at night. And I became really good as being a drug dealer. And so I dropped out of college and I thought life was grand at the moment. And all of a sudden, I was shot at a number of times. I was robbed by gunpoint.
Wow.
And probably the last time I watched friends get murdered. Go to prison for a long time, and for whatever reason, like God's hand was on my life. The last time I was robbed, I was told to get down on my knees, and I just I'm about to get executed.
Wow.
And I just remember just saying, I only got enough time to say, Lord, forgive me. And I did. When I seen that I was still alive, I'm like, God, if you get me out of this situation, I promise I'll change my life. And I was able to escape, long story short, and I knew that God had spared my life, didn't understand why, because I did nothing to make him happy.
So what happened in Sussex that really kind of changed your thinking?
Yeah, well, people wanted to kill me in Milwaukee, so it was a great outlet to spend all of my time in Sussex. And I was preparing myself for, my dad was born in 1936 in Mississippi, so my idea of white America was formed by my dad. And so I was embracing myself for racism and all of those things in Sussex. And actually, I experienced just the opposite. I was kind of confused.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I realized I couldn't put everybody in the same in the same basket. Sometimes we just use broad strokes. But I took a job there making $7.50 an hour. It was pretty humbling. But my boss, he just began to show me love, and I don't know why again at that moment. And
he was white.
He was white, which was surprising to me again. And he promoted me over and over and over again. Made me warehouse manager. Brought me into the front office. He told me he'd train me on anything I wanted to learn in the front office if I'd be willing to punch out. I did, and when a position opened up in the front office, he would put me in it, and I just kept working.
Well, it's evident that the 411 Live is all about delving into a range of intriguing topics. And let me tell you, we've only just scratched the surface in these episodes. I highly recommend you checking out the full podcast or catching them on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Just so you know, the 411 Live is a nonprofit organization. If you'd like to support us, head over to our website, the411live.org. I'm Beverly Taylor. Thanks for joining us for the 411 Live. Real people, real talk. God bless. If you would like to check out past episodes, there are many ways. Go to your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Like and watch us on Facebook. Watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have suggestions for future episodes, go to our website, the411live.org.
The 411 Live.
Where you can learn about issues that impact us every day. State of world, 411 Live.
Real people, real talk.
Made to help people in our community in every way. For your girl, 411 Live.
Hello, I'm Beverly Taylor, and this is the 411 Live. Real people, real talk. I have a treat for you. 3 remarkable Black female former Milwaukee TV news anchors. I'm so excited to have them. They're going to grace us and, talk about their journey, their experiences, their insight. These women have been on our screen for decades, and they have shown their talent and their professionalism. So it is such an honor for me to have them as my guests, and I've been looking forward to this. So let me just introduce you to them. Vivian King, joining me, Joanne Williams, Toya Washington. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
It is so good to have you here to just chat about things. So I should mention that I am also a former anchor. I was in the Milwaukee market for 21 years, left in 2019. Vivian, how long were you, how long were you in and when did you get out? It sounds like prison.
Sometimes it felt like that.
Yes.
I got here in 1995, and then I worked at TMJ4 till 2005. And so 10 and a half years, July of 2005. And so at first I was the education reporter, but then I got promoted to doing morning show. Well, actually the morning show where I really was trying for the job and then I didn't get the job. So I was like filling in for like 6 months and then they hired somebody else. But anyway, I still stayed. And then I ended up doing a weekend morning show. So I did that. And then I also did the midday show as well towards the end. So it was fun.
Yeah. Joanne. We were at the same station.
That's right. We were at the same. We were both at Fox 6. Of course, I was there for TV6, 6's News, for all the iterations of WITI.
Yeah.
But before that, I worked at WTMJ. And I started in 1971.
Okay.
So I've been in television until I retired in 2008 for more than 40 years.
Wow.
And when I retired, I did something else. And then I went to work for Milwaukee PBS and hosted Black Nouveau for about 8 years and some. And then I can't say I retired from that, but I left that and decided to make my own documentary film.
Right.
So I worked at that for 6.5 years and gave birth to that in 2022. And so now I'm on the festival circuit. My film is now on PBS, and I'm starting my second film.
So tell us the name of the film.
The name of the film on PBS is The Exchange, Kakana and King 50 Years Later.
Okay.
But the whole title is The Exchange in White America, Kakana and King 50 Years Later.
That's great. And people can look at our past podcasts because you've been on here on the 411 Live talking about it when you were in the process of developing it and afterwards. So
Yes.
it's done really well. So I want to go back to you, Vivian, since she went and she gave us the full scope. You wrote an award-winning book.
I did. And I was at Channel 4 for 10 and a half years, but I did work in television before that in Alexandria, Louisiana, Tyler, Texas, Battle Creek, Michigan, before I came to Milwaukee. And then left the business and started doing public relations with Roundy Supermarkets. And then I did community relations with Aurora Healthcare. And when Aurora Healthcare merged with Advocate, and it has merged some more since then,
Right.
I left and wrote a book because during that time, in the first 4 months of my time at Aurora, I collapsed and had a stroke. And I ended up writing that book because when I didn't have high blood pressure, history of stroke in my family, I was relatively active. And what doctors said was that birth control pills over the age of 40 is what caused the blood clot in my brain. It bled out over the part that manages your speech. And ironically, I could not talk for 3.5 weeks. Wow. And so my book is when the words suddenly stopped finding my voice again after a massive stroke. So when people meet me today, they're surprised that I had a stroke. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's like, thank you, God, for that.
Amen. Amen to that. And Toya, you're new to the ranks.
I am. I'm the most recent exiled. Yes, I am new to the ranks, and after hearing both of you and what your accomplishments have been and have monitored those, I'm like, what have I done since I've left? And then I have to remind myself it has only been a year and a couple months. Yeah. So I moved here in 2002, was on the air at the ABC affiliate here at WISN for 20 years. Prior to that, I was in Madison at the CBS affiliate there for 7 years. And yeah, it was really, as you all know, making that type of a market jump 20 years ago was very unusual. It didn't happen. And so it was a combination of being blessed with good timing, good luck, and good preparation. So 20 years
good.
on the air here and wrapped that up, hung up the IFB in December of 2022, and here's where we are.
Yeah, because I was watching and I caught the newscast in the middle, and it was like a mention, and she's gone. It's like, wow, that surprised me. I didn't see it coming.
I saw it coming. I saw it coming in the summer of 2020. It was a contentious and unpleasant contract negotiation that led with some ultimatums that basically we met somewhere where I thought was somewhat adequate with the increase in pay. And then it was basically I was told I was at my ceiling, and that was that. If I wanted to come back full time, that's a different story. But with two, tween teenage girls, the demands in the evening are different. Right. And I did not want to miss anything. So I knew basically in 2020 that I was going to be fulfilling my last contract. And I would say most people in the newsroom, other than the closest of my coworkers / friends, didn't know until about 3 months out.
Oh, wow.
But, and, keep in mind, it was also, Kent Wainscott, who had been on the air there for decades. He was retiring. And I'm like, I'm not taking his shine. Like, he's been here for, and the way things came to a close, I didn't think anyone needed any fanfare. That's not why I was not going to do that. So that's exactly how I needed to exit and wanted to exit.
That's good. That's good.
On your own
On your
terms.
term. Yeah, exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth. Okay, ladies, let's just kind of go back from the beginning. And I should mention, too, that Milwaukee is my third market. So when you were talking about going to Madison and you jumped, back then, that was a big deal. Now it seems like people come off the school bus and then they,
Yes.
And they're here. Right. But, back then, Milwaukee was like your third market because that was, you were climbing. It was my third market. I started in a little market in Jackson, Tennessee, which is close to where I grew up. Then I went to Huntsville, Alabama. Then I came here. So in total, it was 21 at Fox 6, but in total, it's like 30 years in this business. But I want to find out from you guys, what made you want to pursue TV news? Do you remember?
Absolutely. Because when I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, my dad was a high school principal at the time. And I was in advanced classes, and so everybody in my class wanted to be an engineer. And so I wanted to be a civil engineer and build bridges. And so, I went to the University of Missouri when I was a sophomore in one summer program and spent 2 weeks there. And, it was great. So I'm like, yes, I'm going to be an engineer. I come back, and my senior year, there was a chance to go to the University of Missouri for a field trip. And so I went, and I said, well, I've seen the engineering school. And there was this woman who happens to be a friend of mine now who was talking about journalism. And I said, oh, I like to write. So I went to the journalism school, and Mizzou has the oldest journalism school in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just captivated. And so I said, that sounds like fun. I came back to St. Louis. The Greater St. Louis Association of Black Journalists had this urban journalism workshop. Now they're NABJ St. Louis. And I went through that 7 Saturdays, consecutive Saturdays. And I was just captivated by the broadcasters and Susan Kidd, Bonita Cornute in St. Louis. And I wanted to be a journalist. And that's in specifically in television. And that's how that happened.
Oh, wow. What about you, Joanne?
I fell into it accidentally. I was going to Northwestern University. I was in the School of Speech. I thought I was going to be a theater major.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started taking the courses that I was supposed to take. And I realized I'm not very good. And I'm not going to make much money in theater.
She said, I'm not very good. I'm not very good.
I looked around at all the other opportunities there were in the School of Speech, and of the other divisions, there was radio, television, and film. So I said, I'm going to try that. And I said, hey, this is fun. I can do this. And so that's how I got into it. I also didn't have to take math if I was in radio. So I did that, and then I never went to journalism school. I learned it on the job.
Oh, wow.
And I started, I'm a Milwaukee native, so I started in this market.
Oh, wow.
At WTMJ. But I started as a film editor and a writer.
Okay.
And then one day the news director said, have you ever thought about going on the air? And I said, no. And he said, well, we're going to try you.
Wow.
So he put me on the air with a reporter named Pete Wilson. And I said, how do I do this? And he said, just be yourself. So that's what I did. That's how I got started.
At that time, how many Black women were on the anchor desk?
Her?
None.
None.
Just me.
Wow.
That's why they said they're going to try it.
That's right. Exactly.
And we're glad they did.
Absolutely.
We're glad they did.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, how about you?
I knew what I wanted to do when I was a sophomore in high school.
Did you?
I thought for sure I was going to be a teacher. That's what I went to a small private school in Minneapolis, and they do what's called May program, which a lot of colleges do, like J-term, where you can go like do different classes or go travel abroad or whatever. Well, our high school did this, but it was during the last 3 weeks of the school year, and you had an opportunity to travel. My family did not have the money to send me to Rome or wherever else people were going. You could do alternate classes, like things that they didn't normally offer at the high school for those 3 or 4 weeks. And I was like, well, why would I sit in a classroom when I could be out doing something else? My freshman year, I was a teacher's aide. And by day 3, I was like, I can't do this. I love kids, but I was like, I can't do this. And then I was, panicked. I mean, and think about it. You're 14, 15 years old. Like, why was I panicked? I don't know. But my dad the next year said, maybe you should try following Tony Saffold, who worked at WCCO, the CBS affiliate in Minneapolis. He's like, you love to talk, you love to write, you're always in somebody else's business. So you kind of reek of journalism.
Love you, Dad.
Yep. Yeah. So, and I was in love with it from day one.
Oh, wow.
And then I knew from that point on that that's what I wanted to do. And I had, great aspirations to go to Syracuse, to go to Newhouse. And I got into Syracuse, but didn't get into Newhouse. And no one bothered to tell me then, like, most people don't get into Newhouse your freshman year. You have to apply. So I was like, I'm not going to go all the way to colder than Minneapolis in New York and Syracuse and freeze for a year and then roll the dice as to whether or not I get in. So I'm like, okay, I'll do a year at Madison and then work things out after that point. And then I just ended up staying. So, and then got into the journalism school there and then got an internship at WISC in Madison. And then one day the news director was just like, before you go to like Wausau and La Crosse and all these other smaller markets, what do you think about having a job here? And I was like, that's great. I appreciate it. But this is back when Kinko's, like I was spending hours at Kinko's between making copies of the resume. I was like using the school lab, like, doing your resume tape on VHS. I was like, I got a box of resumes, a box of tapes, and I have maxed out my Casual Corner credit card. If that doesn't date us, I don't know what does. But I maxed out the credit card. I was like, I got cute new suits. I'm like, I got to go do this. And let me tell you, when I walked into some of those other stations, I was like, please take me. I was like, I can't move to a smaller city than Madison. I just can't. And so they did. And then now I'm back with the company, so that's kind of full circle.
That's great.
Totally.
For your first job to be Madison.
Yeah. See, and again, unusual. That did not happen. Like you said, now it's like the school bus drops them off and they're in.
Right.
But yeah, and then to make a 50+ market jump from there to Milwaukee.
That's huge.
Yeah, that is.
It was crazy.
My first market was market 163.
Mine was 182. So,
And then I jumped to 114.
So I feel bad that I started here.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad. You blaze the trail for the rest of us. Do not feel bad.
Right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Definitely blaze the trail.
That's right.
Hey, we're going to stop, take a quick break, and we're going to come back. You don't want to miss this discussion. I am talking to 3 remarkable former TV news anchors. So stay with us. You're listening to the 411 Live.
People couldn't see my potential, so I had to show them.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper.
Today, I'm the CEO of my own company.
It's the way my mind works. I have a very mechanical brain.
Why are we not rethinking this?
I am more.
I'm more
than who I am on paper.
Welcome back to the 411 Live. I am talking with 3 remarkable ladies, as I always say, and that is Vivian King, Joanne Williams, Toya Washington, former TV news anchors in the Milwaukee market. And we were talking about how we got into the business, but I want to talk, once you're in, what did you experience, especially as Black women, challenges that you experience? What pops in your head right away when I say that?
The fact that I'm Black.
Yeah.
and I was very petite. My voice is higher than a lot of people, and I just remember one time I filled in with the midday show before I started doing it. I filled in with Bill Taylor. And for people who may not know, African-American male anchor. And it was great because I was like, I get to anchor with Bill. And afterwards, one of my friends who was a receptionist at the time said they got calls saying, why are there 2 Black people anchoring the news?
Wow.
And I was just like, really? So, it was, that's one that sticks out. There have been others, kind of similar vein, but.
And what year was that? Just out of curiosity.
That was probably, so I got here in 95. That was probably around 2000. Maybe.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't seem surprised. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be.
No, go ahead.
I know. Now I'm asking questions. You don't seem to be surprised by that.
I knew that I was hired as a twofer because I was hired in 1971. Shortly after things had changed in society, there was civil unrest, and there were people saying we don't have any Black people on the air. So, and I was
Black and a woman.
I was Black and a woman.
Yeah.
So I knew why I was hired. It was harder for me to deal with the men in the newsroom than it was being Black. Because I had to, this was before men really accepted women in the newsroom. So I had to deal with all that. It was an interesting time.
Yeah. And, the other question that pops in my head from what you're saying, how you dealt with, have you ever been with a co-anchor where you were like oil and water? Look at that face.
I know. I'm trying. I was very lucky.
I had a really, really cool co-anchors. I really did.
Yeah. All my co-anchors were good. No, I didn't not get along with any of them.
That's good.
No.
That's good. What about things like appearance, makeup, clothing, how you pronounce something,
I remember there was a consultant that came to the station once, and she showed us a picture of an anchor from New York or something, and I don't even remember who it was, but she had very short hair, and she said, "Now, this is inappropriate to have such short hair."
Inappropriate.
Inappropriate. I'm sorry, and it was very curly, and she said, "Now you can't have this." And I remember asking why. She said, "Well, this just isn't what you should look like as a woman." And that's when I was quite younger, and I had very long hair at the time. I had hair way down to here.
Okay.
Which nobody can see on it. Well, you can see on the camera. Anyway, and the first time I cut my hair, I cut it as short as it is now. I cut it all off.
All at once.
All at once.
So you went to home on a Friday, came back Monday looking with
That's right.
much different hair.
That's right.
I bet they had a fit.
You know what? They looked at me, but they didn't say anything to me.
Yeah.
And I just smiled and went on the air.
Wow.
Good for you.
Because I remember, in some of those markets, it's like if you're changing anything, you need to let somebody know first,
Right.
before you do that.
In my smaller markets, it was like I was the best dressed thing there,
Really?
right? I mean, so they're like, "Oh, okay." So I've never really had somebody say anything about my appearance. Probably I put more pressure on myself because I was initially trying to be like this person or that person or, and so it took me a while for me to be myself. And when I just said, I just have to be me, that is when I think I got much better.
Right. When you were in the newsroom, because I did reporting and I anchored. And I think of those morning meetings that we would have, those story meetings, trying to figure out what we're going to do for the day and all those kind of things. Did you find yourself, at least I did, truly advocating for minorities?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Always,
Absolutely.
Always. My parents wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, my dad was principal of the first Black high school west of the Mississippi. My mother went to that school. I grew up being proud to be Black and making sure that I was seen and heard and that my voice was heard, thanks to how my parents raised me.
Right. My thing, I can remember having these heated discussions about, now, like I said, I've been in the business for 30 years. I remember the heated discussions about the descriptions.
Oh, yeah.
We are looking for a suspect Black male. And I'm just like,
that's half of Milwaukee.
What
That's
is
half
that?
of Milwaukee. Half of Waukesha County.
Exactly.
Right.
And then,
well, maybe not half of Waukesha County. I shouldn't qualify that.
And then there was one station that was notorious for it would be a Black male, but otherwise it would be we're looking for a suspect. And then it's like, okay, what's up with this suspect? And that suspect was white. But we wouldn't say we're looking for a white suspect. So, this is not right. Black male is not a description.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So I had those kind of discussions. And the other discussion that I would have is, okay, I know that crime goes up at the top of the show. And we have black males in their jail uniforms walking through. Where is the balance? Where is because black males are lawyers, doctors, realtors, all these things. We do stories that we need these experts. Why can't we have them as
See, and
experts?
it's funny that you say that, because that was one of the intentional things. When I would find experts, I always looked for the names that seemed to be someone who was not white. So that was where I would say, oh, I have this expert lined up, and like slip it in. Like that was, but yes, it was, at times vocally advocating, but also times where it was just the silent, stealthy advocating.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had wonderful photographers, because we had several African American photographers in our newsroom. And so, the care that they took to film and videotape our community was just unmatched. And so we were all advocates in the newsroom.
Yeah.
And, sometimes, we'd have heated arguments as well, and discussions, I should say, but we really tried our best. And I just like to say that people, when people come up to me saying, people still come up to me saying they miss me on the air. When are you going to go back? I was like, well, it's been since 2005. I don't think I'm going back.
Yeah. I can remember a time when our was he the news director? Yes, he was. We were watching something on a monitor in the newsroom, and there was a fire at a supermarket. And the wrong address came up for the supermarket. And I said, oh, wait, that's the wrong address. That's the wrong place. And he said, that doesn't matter to those people. And I said, it does matter to those people. That's their neighborhood store, and we got to fix it. He said, well, we'll fix it on the next newscast. But I had to deal with some of that. And I never let it slip. If somebody said something like that in the newsroom, or if somebody said something like that in a meeting, I would always say something about it.
Who's the they and the those you're speaking of?
My coworkers and my bosses.
No, I'm saying that's how I would challenge. Like when someone would say that it doesn't matter to them, I'm like, who are the thems you talking about then?
Right.
Explain to me who are the thems. And then usually it was like they realized there was a retraction to be made.
But that happened more often than I would have wished it happened.
Yeah.
But you have to speak up.
Absolutely.
I wonder if people speak up in the newsroom now.
I certainly hope so.
I hope so too.
I would say, as the most recent exiled, I would say there are advocates for sure, and there are people who speak up and speak out, and there are people who don't share the same colors that we are, that do so as well, which is impressive to me. And a lot of the younger journalists who are more globally aware, I will just say, are ones that there have been plenty of times, because I think for many reasons, just raised in a different era where they recognize the importance of inclusion and diversity in a newsroom. Also because, quite frankly, I have a few former coworkers where they knew, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted that I have to be the one. Derek Rose, exhausted that he has to be the one. Kristen Pierce, exhausted, like someone else. So I would say, yes. Is it every newsroom? Probably not. But I would say there was definitely urgency in making sure that, hey, we need to re-examine how that video is shot, or examine who we're getting as an expert, or examine why do we keep going to the same zip code for these stories.
Right. And I remember being a reporter and being out, and sometimes the person who looks the most disheveled or unput together, I should say, they're jumping in front of the microphone, right? And, if it was a black person, I would just be like, okay, let's pull out, let's fix the hair over here. Or this is a little out of place. I just wanted to to help them, to let them, before they did that. Because I know that there are so many others would put somebody on there who just looked horrible, and nobody's listening to what they're saying. They're looking at what they look like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the things that I had. And then you do the MOS, man on the street, and I would always tell my photographer, okay, let's look diversity. Let's have different voices here. It's just so important. The newsrooms are not diverse. Those things,
they're overlooked.
They're overlooked.
And it's not consciously.
Right.
It's not
right.
intentional, I don't think. It's just
Yeah.
I mean, you're feeding the beasts. So it's MOS. Let's just find, look, those are the first 5 people that were willing to stop and talk to me. Let's keep it moving.
I got 5 minutes to get a story together.
Yep.
So let me
That's right.
Just grab this person right here.
There is that. Ladies, that's 30 minutes. So that is the reason why you sit tight. We're going to do a part 2. Because there are a lot of other things I want to talk to you about. Like the mental health, the emotional things that you go through, some of these tragic stories that we would cover, just a lot of other topics. So thank you for being here. Vivian King, Joanne Williams, Toya Washington, sticking with me and going into part 2. And thank you for joining us for another episode. We are a nonprofit organization, so if you'd like to help, go to our website, the411live.org. Until next time, I'm Beverly Taylor. This is the 411 Live, real people, real talk. If you would like to check out past episodes, there are many ways. Go to your favorite podcast platform, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, like and watch us on Facebook. Watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have suggestions for future episodes, go to our website, the411live.org.